8:30, and we now have 3 at present. We'll call the meeting to order. Apologies for Chairman McCarley is otherwise committed. So we'll take over and call the meeting to order. First order of business is approval of the LAMTD meeting and the board retreat minutes.
I make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries. This time we invite the public to speak on any transit-related matter they wish to discuss or bring to our attention. Does anyone in the public wishing to address the board today? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item of business, Florida Southern Senior Internship Program presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy today to be here with school board member William Allen. He approached us a few months ago in his professional capacity, both at Florida Southern and as a school board member, and talked about how what he does and what he does at the school can help bring relevancy to public transportation. And he has 2 very talented students. I don't want to speak for them, but Mariah Sampson and Austin Kessler gave a presentation last week or earlier this week to the senior leadership about how we can be more relevant in specifically the COLTS program and utilizing the technology that we have in different ways to increase the COLTS ridership. We were so impressed as a leadership team that we offered and thought that the board of directors and the general public really needed to hear from these students about what their thoughts were about public transportation and technology. So they're here today to give a brief presentation.
Look forward to it. Alan, right the introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing this agenda item. Mr. Phillips, I appreciate the time and the commitment to allowing our students to service this area. Citrus Connection is vital. We all know that the automobile fragmented our community. However, innovation is critical, right, to our communities.
Mm-hmm.
As a board member, very young in that role at this point, we know the necessity for transportation for our kids. It's vital. So what you're doing, Citrus Connection, is vital to the success and the growth of our community. So I've got 2 students, they're seniors, and they're interactive and game design students at Florida Southern, and they've got some ideas for you. And innovation is critical to our community, just as we see the new adventure that's going to be happening in downtown Lakeland very soon. I think our community is excited about it. So appreciate the opportunity just to share ideas and what we can do for the growth and benefit our community.
Great, look forward to it.
Well, my name is Austin Kessler. This is
Mariah Sampson.
I'd like to extend and repeat that it's great to be here to be able to present in front of everybody here today. We're happy to be able to talk about some ideas that we've come up with for the COLTS program. Over the course of the internship, that's kind of been our main directive and goal, is to design kind of ways to make the distribution of the form to sign up a whole lot easier, more accessible to people, and then also provide ways and some ideas to keep some incentive and get people to keep interacting with the program itself. There are a couple different uses that we'll go over during our presentation, but we're going to talk about first kind of updates to the account system and getting the form out to people and having that be easier to present.
So as a demonstration, this is what it looks like when you first open the app. It has the Citrus logo connection, and then it will automatically bring you into a login or create a new account. So instead of logging in, let's say we want to create a new account. So they will put in their name, email, password. This will most likely be the student. And as soon as they do this process, they will check the icon, are you a high school student? And once they do this, it will ask the high school name, the guardian's name, and then the guardian's email. And what this will do is it will send a form to your high school's email first. It will basically get verification that you are indeed a high school student. And next, it will give it to your guardian's name to ask permission. So be like, hey, your kid is wanting to sign up for this new COLTS program. Do you approve? Yes or no? And they'll have a full-on form to make sure that they go through this process. So once they click create a new account and they get the verification from their high school and their parents, it will go to the main page. It is basically the same. We only added 2 things. So at the bottom, it has the rewards and the routes. The rewards is a new system that we've decided to invent.
So now that we've made that form to sign up electronic and easily distributed to a wider audience of people, we wanted to try and come up with some ways to keep the use and the interaction with the transit high, and try to do some research on some different methods. And we found that perhaps adding a rewards program for consistent users of transit would be beneficial. This kind of program has already seen use in other transit systems, such as in LA or Miami. So there is examples of success with rewards programs with transit. So as everybody's well aware, Lakeland is rapidly growing at very quick pace. New local businesses are popping up, chains are moving in, constantly growing very quickly. And we thought that for the growth program, we could kind of extend some partnerships, if possible, to these businesses and offer rewards to consistent Citrus Connection users, and including Colts program members as well. That would kind of try and incentivize them to keep interacting with transit and keep people in use of the system. So we have a few example pictures here. These are just some example gift cards, like $10 coupons. There could also be % discounts for different kinds of shops, as well as BOGO deals, depending on what the business would do. But before we go too in depth about what rewards you can get, we need to talk about how people would earn them. So we have a few different methods of ways to reward consistent users with points. All of these are kind of done with a 1-to-1 ratio of money spent to points rewarded, which is the typical kind of conversion that is done with rewards programs. So that's what all these values are for. All these are interchangeable, just examples of placeholders. So the first one would be the cost of a ticket. For instance, the one-way ticket for an adult on Citrus Connection is $1.50. So that would be $1.50 spent, 1.5 points earned. In the instance of Colts members, they get their ride for free, but the one-way ticket for a student is $1.25. So it would still be that 1.25 conversion, get people to keep doing that. This is an easy way to track it, just based on what ticket they order, reward points accordingly. Second method is on time or distance travel. This one might be harder to track, but it would be an accurate representation of time invested to points rewarded. Say they ride for 5-10 minutes, get points rewarded based on that, or maybe they go a few miles, get points rewarded back based on that. The last method that I'd like to talk about is one that's very easy to track and could be a nice route to take, would be rewarding people based on the number of bus stops that they reach on their route, whether it's only one stop being their final stop in the intended destination, or if they stop at 3 or 4 along the way, award people points based on how many stops they reach. So these are the ideas for kind of direct rewards based on interaction with transit, but we wanted to offer just another way to reward points to people other than the transit, just to kind of keep people earning points and get them to keep interacting again. And that would be through the use of ads. Now, as for what these ads would be, these could be for Citrus Connection, these could be for any of the partnerships that we have as part of our rewards program with these local businesses and these chains that we could reach out to, just to provide an additional way in interaction with the community that these users would be able to find these ads and watch them and then earn points again, and then go out and spend their points at these places that they receive ads for. And just kind of constantly bring in a circle of watching ads, interacting with the community, using the points, going back to Citrus Connection, so on.
Okay, so the last topic that we were to discuss, it would be the routes. So the only thing that we changed is, so on the actual app itself, whenever you click routes, it goes automatically to the website. Instead, we have integrated it into its own menu. So when you click all routes, it will go to the actual map that will tell you where the shuttle goes and everything. But here we added school routes just to make a list of all the high schools that are available to this new program. Also, under the help page, it has the customer service. It has a form to fill out for when people want to have questions and they want to send it to their email instead of actually calling. And the last thing would be the social media. So it was really clear about the Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, but what wasn't listed was Instagram. And also, I think even better, more modern social media right now used is TikTok. So many big companies are actually using this right now, and a lot of smaller companies are actually getting more people talking about their intuition just from posting a video on the social media.
So that's the main topics. We have the kind of account expansion, we could say, get people the form electronically to sign up, make that distribution easier, being able to fill that out simpler and faster, get people into the COLT program more easily, and then also find ways to incentivize people to get to stay and continue use of the program. That's all we have. If there's any questions or clarifications that need to be made, we're happy to do so at this time.
Any questions? What, staff, you have a reaction or observation as to what's presented?
Yes, sir, Chair. So I think I can speak for the entire leadership team that when we saw this presentation, we were really impressed. The largest barrier to the COLTS program is the access. Right? Universal access is predicated on removing the barriers to public transportation use through the fares. So if you're a Legoland employee, if you work with Peace River Center, you're able to simply show your badge and ride the bus. To work with high school students requires that permission slip. And that permission slip's always been a barrier. We've talked to school board member Allen about this, and when you're onboarded, when you come to your freshman orientation, you receive a package of paper this big as a parent, and so you really try to fill out those forms that are absolutely important. How do I get on the school bus? Inoculation forms, school transfer forms, so my student can come to school as a freshman. I'll worry about the rest later, and the later becomes possibly never. What they've really done here with the app is made it top of mind. Yep. It's something that they can do immediately. So imagine a student who is anticipating getting a ride home from a friend to participate in an after-school program, and that friend says, "I'm sorry, I can't take you today." Well, if they still want to participate in that program now, this would be a great way that they could say, "Okay, Mom, permission slips incoming. If you can fill this out real quick, I can go ahead and take the bus home." So it's just a phenomenal way to reduce that barrier to access. So I think it's exciting and something that Ivan and his team could definitely look into. And the rewards point-based system is Aaron just texted me. This is really part of the TAs from the strategic board retreat in reaching new and emerging markets. So I think it's definitely something that we can look at doing. There's definitely integrations. Not only, I love what you were saying about the bus stops, the miles, the dollars used, but we could also make it multimodal. If you load a bike on, you get points. If you transfer to Sunrail, you would get points. If you transfer at one of our terminals. So I think that there's a lot of successes here that we can do. And then creating those public-private partnerships through the gift cards is yet another way that we can reach the business community that maybe is a great foray into, we do something with you with gift cards first, and then maybe, Commissioner, look at a universal access program for your employees as the next step, but gets our foot in the door. So I think there's a lot of exciting things that can happen here, and the mayor's not here, but as he says, if we're not talking to their generation through this, we're pretty much irrelevant. And what I love what they've done is it's all through this. And most of this, I think, is relatively realistic, Ivan, if I'm not mistaken, because the board has made the investment in the Avail system and in these systems we have. So I'm really excited that you all use the platform that we already have. So it's more than conceptual.
Mr. Walker first.
So if I hear you correct, Mr. Phillips, integration for getting, I guess, students to get enrolled, to be participant in the coach program is something that could be aligned with what we currently have, if I heard you correct, in some respect.
Yeah, so we work with our application developer, Masabi. So it's something that I'm sure we can get it going.
Okay.
And if we can easily have Mr. Darby work with West Bridges at the school board. And if it were acceptable legally to the school board that they accept the permission slip electronically, I don't see why it would be an issue on our end. Again, the permission slip is something more that's a comfort level for the school from a liability standpoint. Also, Commissioner Walker, if we can do this, this may be something that we talk to the school board about with all of this tech integration and tracking capabilities here and the data being shared. This may be a way that we could look at extending the COLT program into the junior high category, which we've all talked about as kind of our next step, right? High schoolers at least have the opportunity to get a driver's license, whether their parents have access to a personal use vehicle or not. It's those middle schoolers that really need to be able to use the bus. So this may be a way that we could expand the COLTS program in the future.
Ms. Santiago.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just congratulations to you guys for presenting this, even coming up with this. This is great. So we really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Allen, for this. Mr. Phillips, more or less, when is the time frame? Do you think since school is almost ending by what, in the next month? Are you looking at probably August or what?
Ivan, what are your thoughts on at least the permission slip component?
I would say probably about August, because I think the school starts, the second week of August? They'll start back the school year. Mm-hmm. So we probably want to aim for the end of July so we can have testing and stuff.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Finish.
Well, I was just going to say technology is the world. I was in Sam's after a long period of not going there because of COVID. And now you could just buy and scan, total, pay, skip all that line there, just go walk out the stores. So yes, technology is playing a big role in this. So thank you for presenting this to us. Excellent.
The permission slips that the school board requests, there's common carriers, there's already limited liability for that anyway.
Yes. So there's
suspenders and a belt concept.
I think so, yes. Again, the Polk County School Board is only the second school board in the nation that approved a public transit contract. The other is Rochester, New York. And Rochester, New York's entire student population of their public school system is 20,000. We're covering, I believe, 25,000 high school students in the COLTS program. So although we were second, we're the first largest. So I think this was, yes, a belt and suspenders. From our standpoint, and I know from our legal standpoint, our feeling is the moment those students step on the bus, whether there's a permission slip or not, we assume 100% of the liability of that ride. And the fact that 100% of our buses are on public property, we're not actually entering school board property, that liability, again, is all ours. But we understand the attorney's position that he'd rather have that permission slip on file, which is why we do it. So what typically happens, if a student flashes their student ID, we ask them if they filled out the permission slip, and if they say yes, we take their word for it.
If they say no, have a seat.
If they say no, we say have a seat. Yes. Technically, the only difference between a COLTS member and a traditional public high school member is the fare. The entire ride is an identical experience.
But no more liability than there would be for any other person.
Or no less.
Yes.
Good. That's good.
Thank you both for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
We look forward to it. Me and the kids and the chairman.
I'm not on the flag.
Absolutely.
On the flag. Photo up here.
So this is your favorite.
Yeah. Aaron.
Very good. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Oh my God. Okay.
This is a
Yes.
cool occasion. Now we have
Yes.
arts and transit.
Yes.
And so it's student day.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I am very excited today to introduce Marina Barrientos. She is the winner of our Arts in Transit for 2021. We had a art contest where Polk County public school students were able to submit art, and that final product would be selected, voted on by the general public with no further information other than your beautiful artwork. And she was overwhelmingly selected as the recipient. And so we're very excited today to have her and her family here. And we're even more excited to show her her bus for the first time. So we'd be happy to have her introduce herself. It's excellent to have a school board member here today. And then if we can, I know the attorney will be okay with it. If we go outside, we can take a brief picture inside of her bus. I want to congratulate you. You are the first, I don't know if it's junior high or middle school. They called it junior high when I was a kid. You're the first middle school student to be an Arts and Transit Award winner. So congratulations, you beat out.
Stand up and show us your art.
Yeah.
Come out of your shell. Calm down. That's very nice.
Oh.
All right, then we will adjourn for 10 minutes to go outside, take a look at the bus, and then come back in and lead the way.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Come see the art. Well, she's doing
I came here when I was like.
Now that they're not here, we have our first meeting, our next meeting in Sabi, first week of June.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was here that day. I don't know why I wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, it was last.
There's a couple cookies. I got one in it before we launch it. A, when you hit your home school, your home route should come up.
Yeah.
We need to have built into that thing, what route services what school.
Yeah.
There's only one school in the area that we don't serve.
Yeah, that was. It was a nice concept. But I think there's
You set your route, what route does it, and it gives it to them, so they know what they're even looking into,
Agreed.
right? And that actually should be available before they create the account and log in. You gotta see if it's a viable option.
Yeah.
That'd be very, very easy.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my one.
Yeah.
And then the reward thing, we call it stop. It's the only way it can, we can't track it.
No.
Something.
We could.
You'd have to do it manually.
100% of what they presented.
Wasabi, it's all like
And like, the ideas are definitely great. I love that.
Obviously, with something like that, you get them where they just want you once and they can return it. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And
Yeah.
But there's a lot of content.
applications as well.
There's a lot of content. I
You
mean,
can do
I don't know.
how to use the system videos to talk.
How did it?
How to follow the time, how to.
If they get 50 points every time they watch that and it's a video like that, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Back up. If they learn how to do our system. Yeah. So we'll make the points low enough where it's not consequential.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's apps that do that, right? There's apps that-
Oh, yeah.
that do that all the time where you get free.
Yeah, I got like 3 apps.
Somebody go on vacation anytime this summer?
Yeah.
Based off of my GPS.
Maybe June,
They said that's Junior.
get some time off.
Yeah, I think you're on
Chill out.
right?
Take a week of spring break, or usually Miami Beach and Key West. Was nice. Take a break, bit of break. Yeah, I need to do that.
Here physically, but I will be on that.
They never do it 3 per year. Yeah, you need to do it. I haven't done it for a long time. You don't break from everything.
Exactly.
In accounting, from internal control, you should take a vacation.
Yeah.
To make sure everything functions without you. Did any impairment.
Yeah.
Been back to Missouri recently?
No,
Brunson? I was just thinking about that. The, what's the place called? It's this resort.
I guess it kind of all depends how.
In that area down there, what's it called? Brunson, big, big something.
Right, I mean, August
Is it
is nice,
Brunson?
but
Yeah, it's there. Yeah. They've got, it's a development that was developed by the guy that. I've researched it. Yeah, it's, can't think of the name of it, but,
yeah.
the guy that developed, owns the Bass Pro Shops, he's the one that started it. It's a lodge, it's on this big lake out there, Table Rock Lake, I think, and we went there last time we were up there, my cousin took me out there, and it's really nice. It's one of the nice, staying cabins and nice places.
Oh, we stayed a couple of nights in one of the, I can't remember the point in Key West.
Great. I offered to buy her a picture, but she wouldn't sell it to me. All right. All the players back, staff.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Prasad, table's yours.
We have the financial statements for March, which reflects 50% of the fiscal activities for the fiscal year. Looking at LAMTD, the revenues actual over budget is 125%. And that's because realizing 96% or just under 5 million for the ad valorem taxes. Looking at the other revenues, fares are increasing now. We are seeing some positive trends in the ridership as well as the fare revenues. So that's a good sign. And being 50% of the fiscal year, we have enough actual expenses to start to draw both the FT and FDOT grants. So we should continue to see a positive trend with the revenues. Looking at the expenses, actual to budget for the 6 months, 86% of the fiscal year, which means we are under 14%. Looking at the four major expenses, salaries and fringe benefits are under 16%, very favorable. Fuel and materials for parts are also under budget. So basically looking at the major expenses, all are within the budget norms for the first 50% of the fiscal year. Overall, at a high level, revenues are over expenses by 2.2 million. So we are all favorable in the revenues and expenses. Any questions?
Looking good.
Next item.
Oh, thank you. Okay. The next financial is for the Polk County Agreement for Transit Services. Again, for the first 6 months, the total revenues are 88% of the budget. And that's basically because based on the agreement, the grants match to draw the grants. And again, looking at the two major grants, the FDOT, the rural, as well as the FTA, we have enough expenses to start to make significant draws on those grants. So revenues are favorable. Expenses are 85%, labor is 83%, operating expenses is 82%, and the contract for East Side Services is slightly over budget, but those are all grants funding. So the expenses are and revenues are favorable and within the budget for the first 6 months.
Any questions?
And then the final financial statement is for the Transportation Disadvantage Program. Again, this budget is on a state fiscal year, July through June, and the financial activities are 75% of the budget. The total revenues, 874,900. And again, there is no financial resources from the district here. The program is funded by the state, 90%, and the local match 10% from the county. And the grant is only 80% of the year-to-date budget, and that's because of some of the decline in the ridership, given the COVID environment. Expenses are significantly under, only 76%, and overall the revenues to the expenses, revenues exceeded the expenses by 25%. So we have favorable performance.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to point out with this particular agenda item, we had a senior leadership conversation regarding the strategic planning retreat. And I just wanted to point out, I think the board members all know this, but just for the record, with the transportation disadvantaged budget, Commissioner Santiago, that is our Fund 6. That is funded 90% by the state, 10% by the county. However, I just wanted to clarify that we do use the same vehicles for both paratransit and transportation disadvantage to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. So this has no budgetary implications, but more just of a service analysis. That when someone is approved for transportation disadvantage, that is a funding decision based on their personal financial situation and medical situation by the state. And they may also be approved for ADA service based on where they live and the services that they need. So when we talk about TD funding or paratransit funding, I just wanted to be clear for the board that the best steward of taxpayer dollars may be that there is a paratransit person sitting next to a TD person. After years of riding the service, Commissioner Santiago, they don't care who's paying for it. They just want to get their ride. I just wanted to clarify that as we talk about the strategic planning, that TD, while a separate fund, and we don't commingle those funds,
Right.
From a service delivery perspective, we do. Yes. Thank you.
And the next one is yours.
Yes, the next one.
Next item,
Yes.
pension liability
Yes.
issue, which comes up every year.
Comes up every year.
Commissioner Santiago, this agenda item is for a write-off for the county's pension liability of $467,825.
As an enterprise fund,
We are required to book the liability. There's no exception for that.
however, the county does not pay for that. It is a book liability.
And so this approval item is to write off the county's portion of the pension liability, which is
$467,825. So in summary, at the end of the fiscal year,
the Citrus Connection will only be billing the county $90,306 as a final settle up. The pension liability will be written off.
There's no
upon
cash
approval
involved in
from
that
this.
Yeah.
balance.
Correct.
That requires board action. Entertain a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Motion approved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Asset disposal.
Yes, the next item is to request board approval to write off 3 vehicles funded by FTA grants. 2 of the vehicles, life expectancy is 7 years or 200,000 miles, and 1 is 5 years or 200,000 miles. All 3 vehicles have exhausted their useful lives, and we normally auction these. The proceeds coming back to the district.
Any questions on that? Entertain a motion to approve the staff
So
recommendation.
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Dunn.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eric,
Morning.
Director of Operations. This agenda item is intended to for approval for.
Aaron, could you speak up a little bit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Approval of an Avail software product that would digitize our pre-trip process. So as you can see in the policy analysis there, it's intended to increase communication through a systematic process. In truth, we have a systematic process. It's paper-based. It's a DOT requirement that we conduct pre-trips on our buses every single day before each use of the vehicle. The way we do that now is the operators go out there and on a piece of paper, they fill out the pre-trip, they inspect the bus, they put it in a drop box. At the end of the day, we pay a couple guys to sift through that mess, figure out what's wrong, prioritize that work, and then deliver whatever needs to be done to the vehicle accordingly. This would put it right on the mobile data terminal. So when an operator comes to work now, they log in on their screen before they start the bus, and the process for pre-tripping the bus goes right along with it. We can then track it, we can create priorities at work, and we can see what's happening in a much better fashion. We are seeking approval for the purchase of this. It is just over $28,000 for a one-time cost with a $4,000 annual maintenance fee from the provider.
And this is provided for in your budget.
It is, there's funding available in the budget, yes, sir.
Any questions of staff? Entertain a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Mr. Phillips.
Mr. Chair, this is a approval item for consideration for the board. It is a recommended action item to approve the use of the CIP budget, which is currently within the budget, to procure the low-speed vehicles necessary to begin the Downtown Connector program, otherwise known as the Squeeze. The board approved $103,747.45, and the staff would like the board's approval to purchase 3 such vehicles and 2 trailers to be able to trailer them back here to 1212 George Jenkins as necessary. Within that budget, we anticipate coming within under approximately $20,000. There are a few updates that I would like to make the board aware of, and we'll be meeting with Lakeland now this afternoon to clarify a bit. The first is the carts will look like this. These are 8-person carts, as you can see, rather than the 6-person carts. I do want to clarify that although I said electric, the technology is not where we need it to be as far as the ability to recharge and cover the area that we need while still being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. In other words, we would need 6 carts to do what we want because of the charging requirements. So these will be gasoline vehicles. I would say that Joe and his team are probably happier with that, as the maintenance will be a little bit easier on that. So these are what the carts will look like. They will have sides that come down, and it will give us 8 passengers rather than 6. So additional capacity for those passengers. You also have, and you are the first to see this. They have it. Sorry, they have it. I don't. You have the proposed lunch loop and the proposed evening loop for the Squeeze. So you can see the downtown loop is a very tight loop that will run. I'd like to thank Mr. Dunn and Mr. Sims for the amazing amount of time that they and their team spent walking and learning about downtown Lakeland. We also worked with Chuck Barnby at the city and Julie Townsend at the Lakeland Downtown Development Authority. And what they heard loud and clear was that we needed to cover the core downtown service area, but the joinery is where it's at. And that people want to be able to get from downtown to the joinery. And I will be very clear that the downtown lunch loop is a very tight loop. It's a 5 to 7 minute interval. And so that is the proposed lunch loop. We will be using sandwich boards at the pickup and drop off location. So as we learn from folks where they want to go, we don't have signs in the ground that we then have to move. The night shuttle, as you can see, is, yes, sir.
So now, if I look at the map, if I notice the map here, going east, that is a joinery what we're looking at in this particular spot,
Yes,
right?
yes, on the north side of, yes.
Yeah, that's a joinery, and so that's the only stop you're gonna have around, coming around from the lakefront on the north side there will be the joinery, and boom, you head back down to what we call the more core area of downtown. Is that what's happening?
Yes, sir, that's correct. They actually, there's 2 vehicles on this loop, and they will not run omnidirectional. They run the same way. So they will all be running counterclockwise. And that's kind of a little bit different, but if you can, the map doesn't really do it justice. From one side to the other, we're talking about 150 feet. So if you're on this side of the road and need to go here, all you do is cross the road, go up and walk over the 150 feet. It didn't make sense to cross them in that tight road.
Okay. All right. Okay.
What was the loop time you said?
It's 5 to 7 minute interval. It's basically 12 minutes for each vehicle on its own. Running the same way, you have 6 minutes.
And lunch is Monday through Friday and night is Friday, Saturday?
Friday, Saturday nights, correct. The night loop, as you can see, Mr. Chair, is a completely different system. The day squeeze and the evening squeeze are two completely different things. So what we learned, thanks to Wesley Barnett, who really worked to secure the hotels at the RP Funding Center, they are already at 95% occupancy on Friday and Saturday nights. And thanks to Mr. Sims and Mr. Dunn, we learned the number one question from management upon check-in is, where do I get something to eat and where do you think I should go? And so we'll be servicing those. Those patrons will be able to effectively go out from the RP Funding Center hotels and hop on the squeeze and access our beautiful downtown.
So how do they pay?
How do they pay? They're going to be able to pay a variety of different ways. The first way that they're going to be able to pay is through our mobile app, the Saba, which Ivan and his team already have. We will have a weekly pass at a monthly pass at $9. Unlimited rides for a month. We'll have a weekly pass at $3, and we'll have a daily pass, which is effectively your medium popcorn at the movie theater, which is your worst value, but you can have the day pass for $2. Commissioner Lindsay, if you are at one of our participating hotels, you may not want to purchase any of those. So what we are doing with our hotel participants is we are going to be issuing wooden nickels that will only be available at the LDDA or our participating hotels. They'll pay 50 cents a wooden nickel. It'll be the Citrus Connection logo on one side, their logo on the other. James is going to manage that program. They'll be handed wooden nickels. So our hope would be that at the coffee dispenser, you're going to not just have the Welcome to Lakeland book or the check-in in your room, you're also going to have the nickels that are there. Or at check-in, the maitre d' or the host is able to give you the wooden nickels so you're able to ride.
But that's only for hotels.
That would be for participating hotels.
Okay.
The other market, we believe, Commissioner, for the day squeeze or the night squeeze is, as you can see, and I'm very proud the team was able to do this, it's going to be Florida Southern students. The Lake Morton neighborhood there, because we're going to do a pickup at the Usonian House. The neighborhoods that are along that route, or Commissioner, these are going to be Lakeland residents who are using it. So our hope there is that Commissioner Santiago and her friends are choosing probably just to buy the monthly pass at $9 a month. Or when they're on the cart and or they see the signs, the QR codes are going to be everywhere, Commissioner Lindsay, so you can download them. But if you're an out-of-town guest, you may not want to download another app and do another thing and put your credit card information again, so you'll have those wooden nickels.
The nickels then turned in for compensation? Do they buy them or how?
When they purchase them, and we're going to work with David to make sure I don't push them into an early retirement, but they'll be handled as cash. So once they purchase those nickels,
we've already been paid.
They've already been paid.
We've got our part.
We've already been paid.
Right.
Correct.
What they do with them is up to them.
That's correct.
So I'll be working part on the selling.
Do any of the bars recognize the coins?
Everyone. So Commissioner, and let me say, I believe, and staff can speak up, the wooden nickel program, we landed on starting with the hotels. The initial thought process was that we offer it to any downtown business that wanted to have them. But we felt like that might get a little unruly.
So this is like conversions of Bitcoin.
Except we're not going to
To be determined. A work in progress.
A work in progress.
Yes.
So to answer your question, Commissioner, outside of the participating hotels, the only other vendor at this point who would have the wooden nickels would be the LDDA, who could then use them for their special programs, whether it be a wedding, Mayfair, whatever they want to do, they could purchase them. They'll have the LDDA logo on them and they can hand them out. So again, if the Terrace Hotel wants to hand them out to a wedding party to go take photographs at Lake Mirror, they're absolutely able to do that, because once they've purchased the nickels, they've already paid us.
Right.
The
Yeah, yeah.
user agreement that Mr. Darby is working on will make sure that there's no additional liability, and they understand that this is not a express service or a service that's meant just for them. So in other words, you want your wedding party to go take photos at the terrace, you're absolutely can use the squeeze, but it is a first come, first serve type service.
So if you take a one-way trip and you use your wood nickel, service stops at 10:30 and you're still downtown, it's up to you to get back where you started.
Correct. So we will work with the hotels to make sure they understand, if you're going to do this for folks, you need to give them at least 2 nickels because they got to get back.
Gotta get back.
Right.
Of course,
Before service is
Citrus
terminated.
Connection for 40 years has had a no strand policy. So we'll continue to make sure that no one is stranded. And Commissioner Lindsay, our goal is to have the QR codes for both the mobile app and the tracking app on the physical vehicle and at every loading and unloading zone. So
At those stands.
at those stands, correct, Commissioner. So my understanding is, and I'm not really good at tech, but now with Apple phones and Android,
You can
that
hit.
if your credit card information's already in your phone, when
Yeah.
you take a picture of the QR code, it
It already
already
loads.
has your credit card information. So it should be relatively seamless.
Should-
We'll work within that first 30 to 60 days to make sure that folks know, get on the bus, download the app, finish your purchase while you're riding.
Got a quick question. 2 questions. I'm looking at this night shuttle, and I guess it just should be for Mr. Dunn, maybe? Okay. Mr. Dunn, on the northern, I guess, shuttle route there, I don't see, I think a very, I guess, heavy place that I see a lot of folk hanging out or having great participation is that Swan Brewery place there. Right there by the post office on Lake Wild. Is there not a stop there?
We struggle very much to meet everybody's needs. And in the very first meeting, we collectively gathered what everybody wanted, what the LDDA wanted, what our staff wanted. It was very difficult to put them all on. We were able to design a route in which you can get to the Swan Brewing. However,
So there's a stop close to it.
there'll be a stop close to it, and because we're not gonna go right up to it, what they will
Right.
get is the adjacent stop, which will be actually on Pine Street right there. We're gonna give them a branded stop. We're gonna give them a little sandwich board that's got like a big arrow and maybe, Swan Brewing this way, because they will have to cross Florida. Interacting
Yeah.
with Florida Avenue is something we're trying to keep to a minimum. So it's very difficult to get in there. We, as a group, decided the best way to do it was stop it mid-block, right adjacent to them, which is kind of in the northwest corner as you look at
That
it.
Florida and Pine area.
It'll be Pine and Tennessee, actually.
So they have to walk over.
They'll walk over half a block, cross the street to get there.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And second question, I'm glad you mentioned the new Marriott hotel there. Because with what I know the city's doing, we're trying to implement the downtown west experience. Trying to get people over and be a part of, especially with Bonnet Springs Park coming out of the ground and some other things that are happening along that area. So there will be just that one stop, at what we call the downtown west area, it'll be the hotel.
We may put in an exit stop, but the start and stop point will be it'll be in the street. There's sidewalks on both sides, right in between both hotels, so we can pick them up both at
Okay,
the time.
I got you.
Plus, we need the space to turn around.
Right.
It's
Commissioner
about
Walker,
16 and a half feet.
my sincere hope as staff is that we can come back to you at next year's strategic planning retreat and talk about how we build on the success of this particular route.
Okay.
There is a much, the staff feels there is a much higher degree of success with the night squeeze than the day squeeze.
Mhm.
There's significant concern that the lunch loop may not be sustainable for a variety of reasons, one of which is including that when Aaron and Paul were downtown, they heard lots of conversations about people wanting to get their steps in at lunch, so they walked to get their steps on. And so the only reason that they would ride it if they worked at Publix IT or in the downtown area was because getting to the joinery was just a little bit too far. So there's a higher degree of confidence in the night shuttle. So if we have capacity issues on the night shuttle, we may come to you and say, let's look at the lunch squeeze and possibly putting some resources into the evening squeeze.
So for the red, white, and kaboom, I can park at Florida Southern, use 2 coins and get over to Lake Mirror and come back.
Next year. Because
It won't be.
the bad news in the approval item is the reason we are coming to you today is because the lead time on the golf carts is between 120 and 150 days.
Oh, so.
Which means if we order them today, we are looking most likely at an October start date. As soon as Lisa and Todd and our procurement team tell me I can legally make the phone call, we'll be calling the manufacturer to see if we can get bumped up in line. But yes, Commissioner Lindsay, theoretically, you would be able to park at Florida Southern
Right.
and take that into town. So Commissioner McCarley had talked about having a set of her friends meet right there at the corner of the Usonian House, parking there and having an evening out and being able to do that. I also know that they have many events at Branscombe Auditorium on Friday and Saturday nights. And Commissioner Santiago, as you know, most of those let out well before 10:30 at night. And I would say that most of their fall experiences are right at about 50% capacity. So I could definitely see Dr. Kerr using this as a way to tell the community that if you live in the Lake Morton area or you live downtown, or even market it to the hotels to say, this is what's happening at Branscombe tonight, go ahead and ride the shuttle and you can catch the Chinese opera at Branscombe and ride back on the squeeze because it'll be over
And
well
that'll
before
be great
10:30.
for the parking, because they have hard parking for events.
So they have 70,000 tourists every year at Florida Southern who go through the Usonian House just to tour the Child of the Sun campus. And those are tourists that are already hitting Lakeland. And then to see the 95% capacity at the hotels at RP funding already, I believe the weekend that you all had tested, there was a
like a dance competition. This is Beth.
Yeah.
all looking for places to go in Lakeland, all getting in their cars or walking. And if you look,
We pass this motion, you can order it this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
All right,
I have to.
entertain a motion. Or question.
Wait.
Got a question?
I have two
Yes, ma'am.
questions. Did we talk about how long the pilot program will last? And during that time, do you have any scheduled surveys or anything like that to provide you the feedback that you were talking about?
the board approved a one-year pilot program from the start of that. So it will be a one-year pilot program. And although we have not, I cannot say that we have actively planned for onboard surveys. It will definitely be something that we're going to do.
Yeah.
I know that Mr. Sims and Mr. Dunn have talked about the fact that our eyes and ears there are going to be the drivers. And that's why we wanted to use the sandwich boards, Commissioner Santiago, because this is what the Lakeland Downtown Development Authority, the Citrus Connection, and Chuck Barnby think is going to work. But it's going to be
Customer driven.
it's going to be customer driven,
Yes.
right? The Florida Southern students are going to tell us where they want to go. The Lake Morton folks, the tourists. And so those sandwich boards will allow us to be able to
So
adjust
during
that.
that 1 year pilot program, we're going to be flexible enough to when we hear those suggestions, we could change things along the
Yes.
way?
Yes, I think that, again, the public excitement and the public profile and the budget that the board has set aside on this does not match the overall budget of the organization. So I'm reminding the general public, we are not abandoning our 40-year mission of being a superior provider of transit service. We are not abandoning the fact that 87% of our riders do not have access to a personal use vehicle. This is just reaching a different market. And again, as Mr. Dunn has said, with the exception of Swan Brewing, where we want to just let people know where that large trip generator is, we're not picking winners and losers from a business perspective. No one's going to get a stop in front of their business because they asked for it. The goal of this is to better all of Lakeland and all of Polk County. And we believe strongly that this, especially the night shuttle, I mean, this really showcases, if you wanted to show somebody downtown Lakeland in the evening, I don't know what we miss on that night squeeze. It's a nice ride. So,
Thank you. And very well possible that depending on, as Commissioner Santiago alluded to, with having to hear questions and answer concerns or however, our night shuttle time could maybe even increase by an hour, hopefully. Because you got 10:30 is like, that's just started.
Yes, I think you're gonna
It
see,
started nightlife.
I think you're gonna see requests for that. And then Commissioner, as you said, once Bonnet Springs comes online,
Yeah,
that becomes, I've said it before, that's gonna be the Grant Park of the South.
and that's the,
I think you're gonna see a strong desire now. I'm not sure, Bill, how we get from Bonnet Springs to downtown in a golf cart. I don't know that we can do it because of the roads. We don't. But we can figure out, so I think there'll be those requests, but yes, we'll be flexible. And that's the best part.
Use our Geico bus.
We got to,
All right, entertain a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
so moved. Second.
Motion and a second, any discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, okay, go order it.
Agent, yes, sir. I'll make that call as soon as procurement says I can. Under agency updates, I just wanted to let you know that you may have noticed in the agenda that we are adding a policy analysis section to each of the agenda items that meets with your strategic planning initiatives. And so we as a staff are continuing to make sure that we keep the strategic planning session alive. And we're talking about it at every board meeting and changing the language that we use. Mr. Shibley is making a breakfast presentation to us tomorrow on TA7, which is looking at how we administer our benefits and our salaries to be competitive within this new market. Many of you know the Chamber of Commerce of Lakeland just had a summit regarding the challenges regarding being able to find employees. We are certainly not immune. And as Mr. Dunn says, we cannot be a superior provider of transportation service when we're down 20 drivers. And
Comes
so,
back to the conversation we had at the retreat about at least the compensation study in key positions, if not the entire population.
yes, sir. And that will be part of our discussion tomorrow. The employee engagement survey results were delivered to the employees via CCTV. Feedback was good. We did offer the opportunity for them to see all the employee engagement survey results as well as all of the comments. But I'm particularly proud that when James delivered the employee engagement via CCTV, he read comments both on the positive and negative end of the spectrum so that folks could hear that we're working on those. And we have relaunched, as you know, 3 Things Thursday. So that was one of the largest requests from the employees. And the $400 hazardous working conditions payment has been made to all the employees, and they're very appreciative. And then finally, I have to take responsibility that when the governor changed the mask mandate to allow not wearing masks outdoors, I followed suit, forgetting that it is a federal program. So we did receive a friendly visit from our TSA folks in Tampa, reminding us that masks are still required at our transportation terminals.
Was that a phone call or a visit?
That was a site visit.
Someone drove from Tampa to tell you that.
Correct. That was
An electric vehicle? Probably not.
It was a helicopter, a hovercraft. So I'd like to thank Bill and his team. So we did receive, it was a good visit. They'll be back in a couple of weeks to spot check us. And the Transportation Security Administration and the FTA bill, September 13th. We will be under a mask mandate, meaning all of public transit through September. So we will continue to follow that mandate. There were no fines or anything associated with that, but I just wanted to let you know that that was my decision. They're in charge, so we reversed that decision.
It's the golden rules.
And yeah,
Who has a goal makes the rules.
absolutely. And that is the end of my report.
Any comments, questions of staff? Anything else?
No, sir.
Anyone else? You mentioned to me before we met, this fuel situation. You seem to be satisfied with inventory for 10 or 15 days of inventory of fuel.
Yes, we have 15 days worth of diesel fuel on hand. As soon as we reach a level where we could take a full tank load, we'll do that. The delivery is got a 72-hour lead time at this point. Gasoline is a little bit better. They come here twice a week to top us off. So that is still continuing. We're using 500 gallons per day for gasoline. So we have a 7-day supply.
So from piecing together media and personal experience, Central Florida is really not in a fuel crunch simply because our fuel comes out of the port rather than through the Northern Pipeline. But that doesn't change the perception of the general public
right.
of
Right.
You're absolutely right.
inventorying supplies beyond demand. So,
Well said.
appreciate your comments, appreciate your attendance, and meeting adjourned.
Also, was going to have the note